So recently I evicted the hardware from this case here, which I believe was manufactured by Inwin. Might have been by HEC CompuCase. Certainly one of the two, given the location that it came from. Now, that begs the question, what am I going to do with this? And what I'm going to do with it is actually something interesting that I don't think very many people would ever think of doing. I don't think very many people would actually even want something like this. They'd rather go for the genuine article. But when the genuine article costs several hundreds of dollars for a bare bones system, well, why don't you just take that several $100s and get yourself something modern-ish that follows the same basic scheme, and that's why this thing right here exists. I believe this is sold by an individual, even though it does say Monotech PCs. That is their online store. They operate out of New Zealand, but this is a new XT. This is actually version 2.0. I think this is even a revision C, but I'm not positive on that, or a later revision anyway. This manual is from February of 2020. Probably not the most effective use of one's money, but, you know, I mean, you could spend, it was about $350 before you factor in the shipping. You can spend $350 on this, or you can spend $350 on the shell of an IBM PC XT. That's basically what you choose between these days. What this is, in loose terms, people have uploaded videos. One that I watched recently was from LGR. He did a pretty good overview of one of these, even though it was an earlier revision of the board. This is basically an IBM PC XT clone in a micro ATX form factor. The new XT, such as it may be, is effectively a project that gives you a piece of hardware that would not be totally out of place in 1987. However, it does pack in a number of very convenient open source projects and makes use of a lot of new and new old stock parts to give you, well, what is ultimately a very nice PC XT without using emulation. There is no emulation done here. This is the real deal. A lot of the open source projects here are from Sergei Kiselev, most notably, at least as far as I'm aware, being the Micro 8088 BIOS that this thing makes use of. So, if we take a closer look at this board, we can see these two slots here, 8088 and 8087. Now, this one has an NEC sorry, it's not a V30, it's a V20, which was a very popular upgrade for these back in the day. Well, not these, but for PC XTs. You'll have to forgive me. It's been kind of a long day. This one's got a V20, which I believe is triple speed, running at 4.77 megahertz, 7.15 megahertz, and I think it was the 9.5 something was the top speed. The manual will certainly say, but we're not going to look at the manual here, even though I probably should, because this stuff certainly predates me, so it's not something I know a lot about. I've also outfitted this one with an 8087, or I ordered it with an 8087 installed. Most software really doesn't take advantage of a floating point unit, but I figure you might as well have it. Math coprocessor. It's there. These are, I believe both of those are the RAM chips. They are labeled, but I can't read the actual labeling. But yeah, I believe that this comprises the first 512K of RAM. This, which is the same chip, comprises everything up to 640, and also gives you some upper memory blocks if you need such. I think there's a total of 1 megabyte installed on this across both these chips. I'm assuming, of course, that they are the same. This is how you set up the UMB. I'm not going to worry too much about it because I just don't care. 640K is enough for anybody, as everybody knows. Certainly for anything that I'm going to do, 640K will be enough. This is the ROM chip. I'm not 100% sure what this big Faraday chip down here is. It's not called out as anything. FE2010A. That's what it is. Somebody will probably let me know in the comments what that happens to be. Duh. The one nice thing that this also implements, as I am about to get bit by a freaking mosquito, is this little thing right here. This is what's called a PC104 Super VGA expansion card. And basically what it does is it adds Super VGA. It's based on a Trident TVGA 9000 Super VGA chip. This one is fitted with 256 kilobytes of memory, which means that it can do a maximum of 16 colors at both 640 by 480 and 800 by 600. So, I mean, it's not great, but it's an XT, so already having VGA is way beyond the usual capabilities of this thing. It's got a built-in floppy controller, which you might be able to see there. There's the connection, and it's also got an XT IDE interface built in. And so there's one IDE channel there. The other one is right here, connected to this compact flash slot, and I do have a compact flash card for this, 64 megabytes in size, which would have been quite a lot for a PC XT. It's also got serial and parallel built in, and another nice thing is it has an XT to AT conversion circuit built in, so you don't have to worry about requiring an XT keyboard for this. Now you can anyway, there are instructions on the board for changing it over, but I think I would personally rather have the PS2 connection because that makes it much easier. And it's got a PS2 mouse, which I cannot envision a lot of PC XTs had, given I think that was a later thing. I don't even think any PC ATs had that either. I don't remember ever seeing any PS2 mouse controllers for older systems. I guess they just really didn't exist. The one unfortunate thing is, even though this is an XT class board, because it's micro ATX, you only get 4 slots. But I mean, with everything built in, you know, you don't need a floppy controller, you don't need an I/O controller, you don't need a video card. You know, the only thing that you would really need to add to this would be like a sound card, a network card. I'm trying to think of anything else. Data acquisition, if that's what you're going to plan on doing with it. So, you don't really need a whole lot of expansion cards on this. And I don't really have any plans to have expansion on this for the time being. I may see if I can hunt down like an ad-lib card or something similar for sound, but that would probably be about it. Maybe a network card, probably not. I can't envision any need for networking on a PC XT, but I mean, you never know. The other nice thing that this has is you can see there is the ATX power connection. The ATX standard, such as it may be, does not actually call for minus 5 volts like the AT and previous systems had, which lends to it a problem when you go to use an older power supply in a system that's got these ISA slots and you have a card that happens to want the minus 5 volts. This thing, on the other hand, will actually generate its own minus 5 volts, so you don't have to worry about that, which, again, is a very nice touch. I went ahead and I looked up the model on these chips, and these are both 512 kilobyte RAM chips. So yes, this thing has a total of 1 meg of installed memory. Okay, so I've gone ahead and fitted a battery to it. Unfortunately, the only battery I could find in my collection was kind of dead, so hopefully it's enough to actually tide me over till I buy some more. It should be, but you never know, really, with these kinds of things. This does have an onboard PC speaker. It's actually underneath the PC104 SVGA card there. So I'm going to install this in this case. I've got a power supply fitted, although I don't really want to keep this power supply here. I probably want to get a newer one that's modular so I can get rid of pretty much all the cabling, because I'm not going to have much in here. In fact, I don't even really... I could probably add a hard drive to it, but I don't really need it. I may do it anyway. But what I am going to do, certainly, is I'm going to add in 2 floppy drives. In this case here, I've got this 3.5 inch 1.44 meg, just a generic drive. I'm going to pull that out and put it in here. And also, I'm going to put in this, mostly for show, honestly, because I'm not sure if it works. But this is a 5 1/4. I believe it's a 1.2 meg drive. Put it in there because that'll cover up that little gaping opening. Can't install a CD drive in this because the XT IDE interface does not work with ATAPI devices, which include CD-ROMs. So, if you want one of those, I guess you got to put in an add-in controller. I don't really care enough to have a CD-ROM on an XT, so we'll stick with this. Let me pop the cover open, we'll get this thing installed. Okay, I've got it installed in the case. You can see it's got the built-in I/O plate, which doesn't fit perfectly, but I'm not going to complain about that. It's certainly better than having no I/O plate at all. So, it works, and that's all you can really ask for. I've got the 64 meg CF card that I ordered with it installed. I'm going to hold off on the floppy drive for now. The floppy drives, I should say. I'll come back to those after I see this thing work. Right now, I just kind of want to make sure that all my connections are hooked up properly and that this power supply is going to function. So, let me get this thing flipped up, hooked up, and we'll see what it does. Okay, got it all hooked up. I did forget to mention that, yes, the fan is plugged in. I'm not really sold on keeping it in there. I kind of wanted it in there for the genuine noise, but I'm not even necessarily sure that fan really works. So, whatever. Let's see what happens. Hey, I recognize that noise. Alright, Trident TVGA, Micro 8088 BIOS, testing RAM, 640K, looks like we got everything that we need. Starting MS-DOS, see what version of DOS we've got. I think it's probably just 622, yeah. So not much. Let me see what this sounds like without the fan installed. Yeah. I'll probably leave the fan, even though it's kind of dumb to have a fan in here, but I'm not really sure I'm going to keep this case either. So, at least for this project. I am going to keep the case because it's a decent little case, but for this particular project, I'll probably end up using a different case. Alright, we're into the BIOS setup utility. So, let's see. Let's see what we set here. Change first floppy drive type. Should be able to enter in 4 for 1.44 meg. It looks like it would even support a 2.88, so that's nice. I want G for the second floppy drive, and we're looking at a 1.2 meg, I hope. I don't actually know if it's a 1.2 meg. So, we'll go for that. And I guess then we'll set the time and date. I don't actually know what today is. Well, I pretty much give up on the whole floppy drive situation. I'm able to get the bottom drive, the 1.44 meg, to work as the B drive, but when I try to plug in this, I get a solid disk activity LED on both drives, and it doesn't matter what I set this to as far as drive select jumpers, because these 5 1/4 inch drives don't have a hardwired drive select. They actually require you to select the proper drive. Stupid camera decided to die for absolutely zero reason whatsoever, so anyway, whatever. It's about typical, right? Do a computer build and everything goes wrong. These newer drives are hardwired. I believe they're hardwired to drive select 1. if I remember correctly. And the twist in the cable is what determines what's drive A and what's drive B. Whereas these older drives expected you to set that just like you would for like an IDE hard drive or something similar. Or it's probably more closely related to SCSI, but you know, it is what it is. I guess as long as the rest of it works, which it really does. I'm probably not going to keep DOS 622 on this. I think I would probably like DOS 3. Something a little bit more period correct on this, but it runs. Okay, good. My keyboard's not busted. So, does this actually have Windows on it? I don't think it does. I'd be kind of surprised. Oh, it does. Sort of. Oh, here we go. Windows 3.0. That's kind of cool, actually. It's video interference, which kind of sucks. But, yeah, this is oops. Yeah, I'm doing this just from memory and from the keyboard, so it's running in real mode. Yeah, Windows 3 is probably not the best option for this either, but hey, it's there. Let's see what this does. So we can tell what this is. V20. Doesn't tell us really the speed, but we can go over to benchmarks. Looks like it is actually running at 9.55 megahertz. So that's cool. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it for that. I can't think of much else to say. So there's your new XT build. That thing just looks so wrong with a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive in it. It's like the opposite of a sleeper build. Well, it was that before. It's now even more of the anti-sleeper build. So, there you go. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I didn't do this thing too much of a disservice, because it is a really neat piece of technology that combines old and new in a very intriguing way. So, it's a lot more cost-effective than buying a genuine XT these days. So, it's got that going for it.